Investing as a married couple does not need to feel like the first scene in a horror movie. Pulling your money together and doing it as a team can be very profitable for you as a family. Let me teach you how to do it the right way. I was talking to a single lady friend yesterday and I was telling her about this episode. I suggested to her that when she gets married, she would need to open a joint account with her husband. It would be a good idea. She immediately broke out into a sweat. And the reason for that is that she imagined that her husband would invest in something risky and then end up losing the money and leaving her and her children with nothing to live on. You've probably heard of horror stories, and in this episode, I'm assuming that you're going to be two reasonable adults. Not like that couple that you've probably heard of, where the husband paid rent for several years only to realize that the landlord was his wife. That couple doesn't need a financial advisor or a marriage counselor. They probably need an exorcist. Two people working as partners can achieve great things when it comes to investing and saving, whether you have two incomes in that household or just one. In this episode, I'm going to teach you how to do it the right way. And before we go into the details of actually how you're going to work together, let me explain some benefits of the two of you investing as partners. The fact is, you have committed to spend the rest of your lives together. You probably have children, and so you want the very best for them. In case something happens to either of you, you want them to have a good life. When you invest together, you are likely to achieve more, you're likely to go further, and other people outside are not likely to come and take your wealth from your children later in life when you have been doing it together with your spouse. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the kind of ground rules that you can set and the way you go about picking investments, and finally, how you're going to monitor those investments that you've picked. At the core of a partnership is a partnership agreement, and when you're investing together, you also need to have an agreement. I know you exchanged vows, you signed a certificate, and you probably did that thing where the bride is asked to put the certificate away, and she puts it in the groom's jacket or in his hat or even in his shoe. And think of your vows as the constitution of your marriage, but you need laws to actualize that constitution. And when it comes to investments, you need some investment agreements between the two of you to make this thing work correctly. And there are two things that you need to talk about. The first thing that you need to agree on is how you will deal with outsiders. Without a doubt, you'll have to interact with outsiders. You'll have to interact with investment advisors, investment companies, and even your friends and siblings. And there's a way that we can have blind spots with the people that we are dealing with. For example, if you're dealing with your siblings, you will never imagine that they could take your property away from your children when you pass. But it can happen, and it actually has happened. And so when you are with your spouse and when you take time to talk about how you're going to pick the different people that you're going to work with, your spouse is able to pick up on red flags. For example, if someone tries to flatter me and tell me that I look good and confuse me so that I can invest, my wife is going to bring me down to earth and tell me that my abs are now in heaven. I'll go to them, but they'll never come back to me. And so you need to have a clear agreement on the people that you're going to work with, and the both of you need to verify everybody that you invest with. The second thing that you need to agree on is how the person who has been given the responsibilities of managing the investments is going to report to the other spouse. Something with, I think mostly men are affected with this, is that when you have been given the responsibilities of managing your family's investments, you become hostile whenever your wife is asking for an update on how those investments are doing. You feel like she's not trusting your leadership. And as time goes by, you might make mistakes, and then you start hiding those mistakes. And by the time they come out, it becomes a big deal. So as a couple, think of ways that you are going to have regular reports on how your investments are doing. For example, even the president of a country needs to give a State of the Nation address, or the CEO of a company needs to give an update to the board members and also to the shareholders. What this is going to do for you as a couple is that it is going to make sure that you are always focused on the performance of your investments and you're always making good choices. So you definitely need an investment agreement, and there are very many important things that you need to talk about, but these two are the most important ones. You need to talk about how to deal with outsiders, and you also need to talk about how you're going to report progress, because these two are the ones that cause the most tension in your relationship. Then after you have an agreement in place, you can move on to the next step of how to pick your investments. When you're investing together, you need a systematic way of picking your investments. We don't want to admit this, but when you're investing as an individual, you're likely to be moved by your emotions. You want to follow the crowd. You do not have a systematic way of approaching your investments. And the problem with this is that when you are led by your emotions, when you follow the crowd, you are not likely to make a profit. When you're a couple and both of you are moved by your own emotions when it comes to investing, there's going to be conflict between the two of you. So you need to be systematic about it. And the way you go about picking investments as a couple is, first of all, set your goals and then decide on an asset allocation plan. The first thing that tells you what investments to pick is your goals, and specifically how soon you want to achieve those goals and how certain you want to be that you're going to achieve those goals. Let me give you an example. If I'm going to the airport, I need a form of transport that is reliable. So I'm going to look for a cab company that allows me to book a cab, and the cab is going to be here exactly at the time that I want it to be here. However, if I'm just running errands, any cab hailing app is going to be okay because the timing is not so tight. And your investments are your ways of getting to your goals. They are like the vehicles that are going to take you to your goals. So if you have a goal that you must achieve, for example, your retirement, then you need an investment that is reliable, that has been tested over many years. You do not want to start experimenting with your retirement goal. However, if it is something else, you can be free to take on a bit more risk and an experiment with the kind of investments that you are going to pick. And that is how, as a couple, you're going to be successful when you pick investments. First of all, take the time to set the goals for your family. What do you want to achieve? What kind of retirement life do you want? And then once you have those goals in place, once you know when you need to achieve those goals, it's going to become much easier for you to vet investments. The next thing that is going to guide your investing is having a predetermined asset allocation. An asset is basically a type or a category of investment. The single friend that I was talking to earlier was afraid that her husband would one day wake up and want to be a macho man and then put all their investments in a risky thing. And then they would end up losing everything and end up in the poor house. Having a predetermined asset allocation is going to save you from that kind of situation, because before you start investing, you're going to decide what you're going to put into different types of investments. So what percentage of your wealth is going to be in bonds, what percentage is going to be in shares, and what percentage is going to be in real estate or any other type of investing. Therefore, your husband or your wife is not going to wake up one day and then take all your wealth and put it in a friend's business. You have an asset allocation, and so if you have not decided that you're going to be investing in friends' businesses, then that is not going to be an option. When you have a systematic way of picking investments, you'll find that you work much better together. And this involves setting your goals and also having a predetermined asset allocation. With these things in place, you are now going to work together towards success. But for you to stay successful, you need to be able to monitor your investments. And that is what we're going to talk about next. The most important thing about investing is to monitor your progress. Parents who have young children like to hear noise whenever they can't see those children. They know that when there is silence, something bad has happened. And for you, when you're investing as a couple, you also need to hear noise about your investments. If you do not hear anything about your investments, then you have my permission to freak out. So what kind of noise are you looking for? You want to hear about the kind of performance and also the risks that you are taking. The way that you monitor the performance of your investments is by having a benchmark. When I was 10 years old, I used to be a great break dancer. I knew it, my friends knew it, everybody knew that I was a solid gold dancer. This was until a kid who actually knew how to break dance came into our circles, and immediately I knew that I sucked. He was the benchmark that I compared myself to. Without a benchmark, you might imagine that an investment is doing great. For example, if you're being promised 9% returns, you may think that that is amazing. However, when you compare it to a benchmark like a treasury bill, which is riskless and which pays between 9.3% and 10.2%, then you'll realize that that investment is actually nothing special. Before you start actually investing, you need to pick a benchmark that you're going to use to monitor your investments as a couple. Then regularly compare the investments that you have picked against the benchmarks to know how they are performing. You also need to monitor the risks that you are taking in your investments. Have you ever wondered why in movies people have weighing scales in their bathrooms? It is because your body wants to go out of control, and unless you have a way of checking your weight regularly, you are going to find one day waking up that you have added a lot of weight. And it's the same with your investments. As time goes by, you will find that more and more of your money is invested in high risk investments, and so you need to schedule some time as a couple when you're going to review your investments and then rebalance them to make sure that you are taking on just enough risk that you are comfortable with. You can't manage something that you do not measure. Peter Drucker said that. And you need to measure the returns and the risks of your investments in order for you to manage them. You need to make sure that you are maximizing your returns without taking on too much risks. Let me conclude. Think of the investment part of your marriage as a chama or a partnership. And when you work as partners, you're likely to succeed and go further. And for this partnership to work, you need to first of all think about how you're going to deal with third parties and how the person who is going to be managing the investments is going to report to the other. You also need to decide your goals and also your asset allocation, and this is going to guide the kind of investments that you're going to pick. Finally, you need to have a benchmark that you're going to use to monitor your investments and how you're going to rebalance your portfolio to make sure you're not taking on too much risk. If you're single, I hope that the next time someone suggests that you are going to need to pool your money with your wife or your husband, you're not going to break into a sweat of terror. And if you're married, I hope that you're going to use these tips to take full advantage of the partnership and to build your wealth together.